If you thought it was bad, it could get worse. Meghan Markle could be coming back to the United Kingdom.
Under the harsh lights of Los Angeles International Airport, an ordinary night spiraled into chaos. Security alarms blared, K-9 units reacted, and whispers followed Meghan as 7 heavy suitcases drew sudden scrutiny. What triggered the alerts? Why the frantic calls behind closed doors? Officials stayed tight-lipped, yet passengers watched a scene unfold that felt unreal. From protocol breaches to unanswered questions, this moment ignited outrage across the UK and beyond. So, was it a misunderstanding? Or something far bigger, hiding in plain sight, right there at LAX tonight alone? The night the cameras didn't blink. The timestamp matters because details always do. Just before midnight, around 11:42 p.m., cameras at a discreet private terminal in Los Angeles captured a sequence that has since fueled intense debate. This terminal at LAX is built for privacy, favored by celebrities who wish to move unseen, yet every corner still watches. A dark SUV rolled not toward the passenger entrance, but into a cargo loading area normally reserved for freight. That single choice shifted everything. What followed looked carefully planned. A driver, believed to be private security rather than airport staff, opened the rear of the vehicle and revealed 7 identical matte black cases. They were oversized, rigid, and uniform, the kind used for industrial transport rather than personal travel. As each case was lifted, the effort showed. One man struggled, another adjusted his stance. When a case slipped and hit the ground, it landed without a bounce, producing a dull, heavy thud that suggested solid mass rather than clothing. Observers later compared those visuals with figures from a police report filed weeks earlier, one that mentioned missing funds totaling about £12 million. Financial experts weighed in quietly. Cash in high denominations is deceptively heavy, and when broken into mixed bills for quick use, the weight increases dramatically. Divided across 7 cases, the load seen on camera appeared to match the math with unsettling precision. At 11:48 p.m., airport security swept the cargo zone. A K-9 unit, trained to detect currency, stopped and sat at a trolley, a passive alert. The handler tugged gently, but the dog refused to move. Then, a suited man, reportedly from a private security team, presented paperwork. After a brief exchange, the handler glanced between the document and the dog, made a decision that still raises questions, pulled the K-9 away, and allowed the cases to continue. Under U.S. law, transporting more than £10,000 in undeclared cash out of the country requires formal disclosure. Failure to do so can fall under bulk cash smuggling statutes, carrying severe penalties if proven that this moment represents a misunderstanding. A protected clearance or something far more serious remains unresolved. What is certain is that the footage exists, the timeline aligns, and the silence surrounding that night continues to speak louder with each replay. But as the footage replayed, what hidden details did Meghan's restless movements at LAX reveal about that night's tense reality? The night, the cameras changed everything. The video does not show calm or celebration. It opens on Meghan under harsh airport lights, restless and alert, moving back and forth near the cargo area at LAX just after midnight. This is not the image of someone waiting for a flight with nothing to hide. She stands close to the loading crew, eyes fixed on each suitcase as it disappears into the plane, her hands hovering as if ready to intervene. At one moment, she even reaches out to touch a case, checking it herself. The tension in her posture tells its own story. Witnesses later said this happened in late 2024, around the same period when private travel between California and the Middle East quietly increased. Instead of relaxing inside a VIP lounge, she stays planted by the cargo bay, scanning the gates, glancing behind her, watching every movement. It suggests fear, urgency, and deep mistrust. If these bags held only clothes, there would be no need for such control. Her behavior implies that whatever was inside mattered more than comfort, privacy, or appearances. Then there is the question of scale. 7 large suitcases do not fill themselves overnight. Financial experts note that withdrawing millions in cash from Santa Barbara banks would take weeks, not hours. Such sums require careful planning, multiple locations, or access to private vault services. This points to preparation stretching back months, possibly while public projects, books, and filming continued as usual. Piece by piece, the bags were likely filled, waiting for the right exit. The footage has wider consequences. Records confirm she later arrived in Dubai, placing UAE authorities under scrutiny. If large sums left the United States undeclared and entered another country the same way, questions arise on both sides. Diplomatic titles may open doors, but they do not erase customs laws. What was waved through in Los Angeles could now echo across borders. For Harry, the impact is personal. Seeing familiar suitcases loaded onto that plane would feel like watching a private world slip away in real time. A security source described the scene as unreal, like a movie set, where everyone sensed something was wrong, but no one dared challenge a duchess. That silence, driven by status and intimidation, may become the most troubling detail of all as investigators continue to study the video, the audio, and the choices made on that night. Could the evidence from that night reveal the shocking secret behind the 7 black suitcases waiting on the LAX tarmac? Inside, a controversial allegation. Under the harsh white lights of an airport tarmac, a private jet waited with its engines humming, while 7 black suitcases sat in a neat row beside an SUV. That image, captured late one night in 2024 at LAX, has since taken on a life of its own. To many online commentators, it has become a symbol of everything they believe this unfolding controversy represents: secrecy, power, and a carefully hidden plan finally exposed. According to claims circulating in media circles, the moment that changed everything came when a K-9 unit paused beside the luggage. Audio specialists later suggested that, just as the handler stopped, a voice cut through the fading engine noise. It was not calm or curious, but sharp and forceful, allegedly shouting an order to "fix this now." Supporters of the theory argue that those words mattered more than any photograph, because they implied awareness rather than surprise. Whether accurate or not, that recording has been described as a turning point in how the incident is perceived. Attention soon shifted from the suitcases to a second figure caught on camera. A younger woman stood slightly apart, holding a clipboard, handing paperwork to the pilot before he boarded. She did not match the faces the public expected to see, and her quiet presence only deepened the mystery. Online investigators claim to have traced her identity through corporate records, linking her to financial consulting firms based in the Cayman Islands. In these accounts, she was portrayed as a specialist in asset protection, someone allegedly skilled at moving money through layers of shell companies and offshore trusts. What made these allegations more dramatic was the suggestion that this woman had been seen before, not at an airport, but inside the Montecito home months earlier. Sources friendly to staff narratives claimed she had been introduced as a wealth advisor in 2023, brought in to help manage charitable projects. Documents were reportedly signed in good faith, with little suspicion. In this version of events, trust became the doorway through which everything else followed. By the time the jet lifted off, commentators say the damage was already done. The suitcases, the voice, the clipboard, and the timing combined into a story that refuses to fade. To critics, it was not an outside theft, but a careful extraction from within, one that reshaped personal relationships and public images alike. Whether proven or disputed, the tale continues to grow, driven by that single haunting picture of 7 suitcases disappearing into the night. So what shocking truth was hidden inside those 7 suitcases, and how could they reveal a $12 million secret that unfolded over months, not days? 7 suitcases and a trail that spanned the globe. Back to the suitcases, 7 of them, because that detail refuses to fade. According to claims now circulating among investigators, those bags were not ordinary luggage, but the visible end of a long, quiet process that allegedly unfolded over months, not days. Moving a fortune said to total around £12 million in cash is not simple in the United States. Large withdrawals trigger reports, so the theory points to money first leaving accounts as routine business payments, then slowly returning as cash through layers of middlemen. The payments reportedly began in late 2024 and stretched into mid-2025, sent to firms described as security advisors, media consultants, and logistics experts. On paper, it looked like normal spending. Behind the scenes, investigators allege many of these firms existed only as shells. Cash was withdrawn in pieces, stored off-site, and quietly added to the growing stockpile. Each solo trip, each overseas court appearance, allegedly added another layer to the plan. By the time the luggage appeared at LAX, the work was already done. Video footage from that night has become the centerpiece. Analysts claim it shows more than hurried boarding. A brief flash of paperwork, not a standard diplomatic passport, but a letter of passage typically reserved for working royals, raised alarms. The issue, according to legal experts, is simple. Private citizens do not have the authority to use such documents. If an outdated or unauthorized pass was presented, the implications could stretch beyond airport security and into federal jurisdiction. Attention has also turned to the K-9 unit. The dog's alert, followed by the handler's immediate radio call, suggests concern rather than routine procedure. Requests filed under the Freedom of Information Act are now seeking security logs from that evening to determine whether an alert was overridden. If so, the decision to clear the flight becomes as important as the luggage itself. One frame of footage has drawn particular interest. A yellow luggage tag, often associated with diplomatic courier status at private terminals. If that label was used improperly, it could signal impersonation on an international scale. The flight itself adds another layer, allegedly a private charter linked to a Malta-based holding company, with financial trails touching California, the Caymans, and Dubai. What remains most striking in the footage is not the paperwork or the bags, but the mood. Observers describe a sharp, focused energy, less like departure, more like completion. To critics, it looks like the final step of a carefully engineered escape, wrapped in celebrity and privilege, now unraveled frame by frame under a global spotlight. What hidden truths did the cameras miss, revealing a deeper story of celebrity, privilege, and secret movements under the unforgiving glare of global scrutiny? The paper trail that changed everything. What surfaced on camera was only a fragment of a much larger story, because the real evidence lived in forms, weights, and digital timestamps. Moving cargo onto a private jet is never casual. Federal rules demand full disclosure, especially on international departures from hubs like Los Angeles International Airport. Records filed shortly before takeoff in early 2024 show a cargo declaration that raised immediate alarms among aviation and customs experts. Instead of listing cash or valuables, the paperwork described the load as vintage theatrical costumes and props, valued at just £5,000. That single line mattered more than it appeared. Authorities note that mislabeling cargo is not a harmless mistake, it is a serious offense. Even more striking was the listed weight. The manifest showed roughly 600 pounds. Anyone familiar with air logistics understands how implausible that is for a handful of old costumes packed into suitcases. The numbers simply did not match the description, creating a gap that could not be explained away as a clerical error. For that paperwork to pass inspection, someone had to see the mismatch and approve it anyway. Behind the scenes, attention shifted to what happened once the jet was airborne over the Pacific. Just after midnight, around 12:01 a.m., a message reportedly reached Prince Harry's phone. It was not a lengthy explanation or a plea. Sources say it was a photograph taken from inside the aircraft, showing the fading lights of Los Angeles below. Beneath it were 4 words that immediately sparked debate. "The debt is paid." That phrase has since been examined by legal analysts and financial observers. Some believe it hints at a strategy rather than a confession, a way of reframing the movement of funds as compensation rather than theft. By presenting the money as something owed, the narrative shifts from crime to settlement, from wrongdoing to justification. It suggests a belief that years of personal struggle could be assigned a dollar value and collected without agreement. Questions about the origin of the money soon followed. Industry insiders quietly pointed toward high-profile media contracts signed in previous years, including streaming deals announced amid global fanfare in 2020 and 2021. While no court has ruled on these claims, the combination of altered paperwork, questionable approvals, and symbolic messaging paints a picture that continues to unsettle observers. What makes this story linger is not just the alleged sum involved, but the confidence behind every move. From the manifest to the message sent midair, each step appears calculated, leaving behind a trail that authorities, analysts, and the public are still trying to fully understand. And when investigators traced the missing funds, what shocking secrets did the trail of vanished millions reveal about promises that were never kept? The flight, the files, and the fortune. What surfaced first were whispers of money going nowhere, budgets approved, promises made, and projects that never appeared. Over time, those whispers hardened into a trail of paperwork that painted a darker picture. According to leaked claims circulating in late 2023 and early 2024, millions meant for glossy documentaries quietly vanished while production offices stayed strangely silent. The explanation offered was simple delays. The reality, some allege, was far more calculated. Invoices began to tell their own story. Payments for scouting trips, scripts, consultants, and talent holding fees flowed steadily for over a year, adding up to a neat £12 million. The money, reports claim, did not go to filmmakers at all. Instead, it was routed through a company with an innocent name and a familiar address, an office block in the Cayman Islands tied to a little-known associate who had recently appeared in airport sightings. To investigators reviewing the documents, it looked less like poor management and more like money circling back to its source. Inside the household, trust appears to have cracked. One partner believed the checks were paying creative teams. Only later did he realize, according to sources, that the budget may have been feeding a private pipeline. What looked like unfinished work now seemed like camouflage. Streaming executives, faced with the possibility of fraud, reportedly moved fast, weighing serious legal action that could pull everyone involved into the spotlight. As the financial storm grew, the political one followed. Claims that status and privilege may have smoothed travel and access reportedly alarmed officials on both sides of the Atlantic. By early 2024, palace insiders suggested a firm line was being prepared, one that would strip away any implied protection and leave matters to international law enforcement. Then came the flight. A charter jet crossed European airspace bound for the Middle East, carrying passengers and luggage that, according to alerts, raised red flags. International agencies were said to be watching closely. Dubai loomed as a potential safe harbor, a place where money quickly invested could become untouchable. Yet midair warnings changed everything. The pilot, informed of the allegations tied to his cargo, faced an impossible choice: continue or divert. Back on the ground, lawyers worked through the night. Emails, bank records, and messages were gathered, not hidden. In a dramatic turn, one insider reportedly chose full cooperation, offering a complete financial breakdown to protect himself. Whether the plane lands as planned or is forced down in Rome or Athens, one thing is clear in this unfolding saga. What began as missing content has become a high-stakes battle over truth, loyalty, and a fortune that may never have existed at all. But in this battle of loyalty, power, and fortune, what shocking truths are hidden behind the love story everyone once celebrated? When the sky closed in. The love story people once cheered has faded into something darker, shaped by suspicion, power, and money. What was sold as loyalty against the world now looks to critics like a clever way to keep one man isolated while his resources quietly slipped away. In this version of events, he was never just a royal spare, he was treated like a spare vault. Online commentators say the real danger arrived not with heartbreak, but with paperwork. A single flight document, filed casually and signed without drama, became the center of everything. In the United States, customs forms are unforgiving. If false information appears on them, intent barely matters. That idea alone turned whispers of separation into talk of legal exposure, not in divorce court, but under federal law. Then came the flight. Late in the night, sometime in early 2024, a Bombardier Global Express crossed the Mediterranean, heading east. Its destination, according to tracking data shared widely online, was Dubai. But as the jet entered European airspace, the calm reportedly broke. Italian air traffic controllers contacted the cockpit with an urgent message said to be linked to a request from U.S. authorities. The pilot, according to these accounts, faced a brutal choice: continue and risk losing everything, or divert immediately. Minutes later, at about 3:12 a.m. local time, the plane made a sudden turn north. It did not land among luxury lights or private terminals. Instead, it descended toward Sigonella Naval Air Station in Sicily, a NATO base more familiar with military movements than celebrity arrivals. That detail alone shifted the tone of the story. This was not a glamorous stopover. It was controlled ground. Witnesses later described a silent, tense scene. Security vehicles closed in. Italian officers, U.S. personnel, and customs officials stood under harsh lights. No one rushed out. Time stretched. When the door finally opened, the passenger was escorted away, not dramatically restrained, but firmly guided. Several heavy suitcases followed, handled carefully, and moved to a secure hangar. While Sicily buzzed with speculation, attention turned to London, where legal and financial pressures were said to be closing in from another direction. True or not, the message spreading fast was simple: debts do not vanish, stories do not protect you forever, and sometimes the sky itself becomes the place where control is lost. And when Buckingham Palace finally acted, what hidden message were they sending to the world that everyone needed to see? When the palace door closed, Buckingham Palace did not whisper this time. It acted. With a quiet update to the royal website earlier this week, a powerful signal was sent to the world. The pages once reserved for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex disappeared without ceremony, replaced by a stark notice attributed to the Lord Chamberlain's office. It referenced newly issued letters, patent from King Charles III, and a request to Parliament that could permanently alter royal history. In royal terms, this was not routine housekeeping. It was a severing. Behind that digital deletion lies a storm of allegations stretching across borders and dates. By mid-2025, sources close to European authorities were already discussing concerns over the alleged misuse of royal status during overseas travel, including a controversial stop in Italy. The language used by the palace, conduct incompatible with the responsibilities of the crown, and references to diplomatic protocol, suggested more than family tension. It hinted at a desire to step away entirely, leaving no shield, no ambiguity, and no royal cover. As attention turned outward, the personal fallout appeared just as striking. Reports from Monaco described Prince Harry alone near the shoreline days after the news broke, without aides or security, a rare sight since his departure from royal life. To some, it looked like isolation. To others, release. Insiders claim that financial pressures and legal fears had weighed heavily on him for months, and with assets allegedly frozen or seized, that chapter may have closed as abruptly as the palace webpage. Meanwhile, legal maneuvering intensified elsewhere. Before a diverted flight even reached Sicily, cooperation was reportedly offered to U.S. authorities by legal representatives tied to the wider Sussex business network. Investigators are said to be examining shell companies, disputed invoices, and streaming-related finances dating back to 2022. What was once marketed as a global media empire is now, according to observers, being dissected line by line. The possible consequences are severe. Legal experts point to potential exposure involving undeclared cash, false statements, and misuse of status, charges that could define the next decade if pursued. Whatever the final outcome, the symbolism is already fixed. Titles can vanish overnight. Influence can evaporate faster than it is built. What remains is a cautionary tale of ambition unchecked, where global fame met institutional limits and lost. So, what do you think really happened at LAX when Meghan was stopped with 7 cash-filled suitcases and K-9 dogs alerted? Cover-up or coincidence? We'd like to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like and subscribe.